Hello everybody, this is Lauren Harpster from Bead and Blossom, and today we are starting lesson 4 of my Learn Fringe Beading beginner course. We're going to be talking about different kinds of fringe. We're going to be talking about both the twisted fringe, which is this variety, and then in a future part of this lesson we're going to be doing some wire back fringes. But for today we're going to be doing these twisted fringes, which looks like this. Now basically these are beads that are sitting on top of a longer twisted stem of wire. And this is a continuous technique, so all of these little fringes are all made on one length of wire. Now with the twisted fringe technique, because you're going to be doing a lot of twisting with these, I like to work with a thinner gauge wire. Usually it's going to be a 28 gauge. If you work with a 26 or 24 gauge, which are a little bit thicker, it's a lot harder to twist and you're going to end up with very sore fingertips. So I like working with a finer 28 gauge for these. Alright, so I've got some size 11C beads pre-strung onto some 28 gauge copper core wire, and I'm ready to go with some twisted fringes. A simple pattern that we're going to be working is 6 1/2 inch twisted fringes with 3 beads at the tip. Alright, so I'm going to count out the 3 beads that I need for my first fringe. And then I need to measure 1 inch of wire. Now note that the pattern tells us that we need a 1/2 inch twisted fringe. That means that we need to use 1 inch of wire, which we're going to fold in half. Some patterns will tell you the finished length of the fringe, while others will tell you how much wire to measure out and fold in half. So pay attention to what the pattern is actually saying. So I'm going to measure out 1 inch of wire, and I'm going to kind of lift up on both sides because I want to make a little bit of a dent in my wire on both ends. This is just going to help me mark that 1 inch length. Now you don't want to do this too deeply. You can see my notches are just very subtle there. You don't want to do it too deeply or you're going to end up making your wire break, which you don't want. So we have 3 beads captured in the middle, and then we're just going to match up the 2 notches. And that's where I'm going to start twisting together, is right at those notches. That just helps make sure that my fringes are all the same length. And while I'm twisting, I'm going to make sure that my wires are at about the same angle away from each other. You make a nice V there. If you have one that's bent out further than the other, you're going to end up with a wire wrapping around the other instead of a nice smooth twist. So I'm going to capture my beads in the center, and I'm going to twist all the way up. And you might need to do one tight little twist there at the end. There we have our first twisted fringe. So I'm going to count out 3 more beads for my next fringe. And I'm going to measure out another inch of wire, starting at the base of the first fringe and then going out to 1 inch. And then I only need to make a notch on one side. So I'm just going to lift up on the one side to make 1 notch on the far end. And then I'm going to match up my little notch with the bottom of the first fringe. And then start my twist there to make sure that my wire isn't going to change length. And then I'm just going to twist upward a little bit at a time until I get tight below those beads. So again, 3 more beads. Measure out 1 inch of wire and make a little notch on one side. Match up that notch with the bottom of the previous fringe, and then start twisting up. And then I need 3 more. And you do want to avoid over twisting your wire. I like to make these fringes with 28 gauge wire because you end up with a little bit more delicate looking wire stem there. And also because it's easier on your fingers to twist that many times. If you're using a thicker 26 or 24 gauge, you're going to end up with very sore fingers by the end. But it does mean that the wire is a little bit more delicate. So you don't want to over twist it. And I need 1 more. Okay, so there's my 6th and final fringe, and I'm going to close this into a circle just as I would with the continuous loops. I'm going to cross my working wire down between that first and second fringe and pull it to the bottom. And then you can twist the 2 wires below to make the unit stem wire. And then you can cut from your spool. Alright, so your finished twisted fringe unit should look something like this. These are generally used for stamen, which I'm sure you can see why. One thing I want to note about this technique, a lot of people like to start at the top and work their way down. They start right below the beads by crossing the wire, but below those beads, and then work their way down. I start at the bottom and work my way up just because I have an easier time keeping my fringe all the same length that way. So that is a personal preference, but just know that you can start at the top and work down if you like to.